Hello everyone, I'm Wendell Jones and welcome to this edition of our program, Jones and Company. On this program, we examine the national issues of the Bahamas. There are a whole lot of things happening in our country, and today we are going to focus on some environmental challenges that we have going on in the Bahamas after Hurricane Dorian, and then of course with COVID-19, some focus is still being put on the environment. And our guest on the program today is someone who has been an advocate for good order in our country, especially on environmental issues. Sam Duncombe, who is the president of Re-Earth. And she informs me that Re-Earth is 30 years old now. Time goes by very quickly. And so it is our pleasure to have her once again as our guest on our program. Sam, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me, Wendell. It's always a pleasure.
Good to see you. You know, you are coping well with COVID-19, eh?
Yeah, I mean, I think for the most part, hanging in there. I think I'm doing a lot better than a lot of people in the sense that, you know, I've got a big family support network, and it's rough on everybody. I just really worry about a lot of the people that have absolutely zero income and are struggling, food-wise especially.
Yes, and we note that the government's food program is going to come to an end at the end of October. And so we are hoping that the economy will get much stronger between now and then so that people can get back to work.
Yeah.
But on environmental issues, what is the latest? I see that the government has tabled some regulations.
Right. So in July, end of July, we were contacted by the Department of Environmental Planning and Protection to comment on the regulations that go with the Environmental Planning Act, which came out in 2019, which we were never consulted on. And then, so in July, end of July this year, we received an email asking for assistance. They had given we got the email on Monday, and they wanted our comments by that Friday. So I responded and I said that's really not enough time, you know, for such an important issue and document. That's simply not enough time to respond. So they came back and said, how much time do you need? We said a minimum of 30 days. After we had a better look at what they were asking, we asked for an extension for 60 days. In any event, we consulted with other attorneys. We looked at other documents, other environmental regulation from other parts of the world, so that we could have a really, you know, robust bunch of regulations that would carry us through for the, you know, especially in this time where there's so much upheaval in our lives, and part of that upheaval is the way we've treated the environment, and the environment is now responding. So we really worked hard over the next couple of weeks to produce a document that we felt would be very workable and, you know, meet the goals that the Act needs, which is public participation, making sure that there's transparency, et cetera. Well, we submitted our comments. We had a really good conversation with the director, Rochelle Newbold, on Monday of this week. And we found out on Monday that we had been given the wrong document to comment on. So the question was, how quickly could we come back and merge the document that we had worked on with the document we should have been commenting on. We were told in that meeting that if we got it to them by today, that should be okay. And then the next day, literally not even 24 hours later, we find out that the regulations have been tabled without any of our comments. And, you know, the whole thing has been handled irresponsibly, disrespectfully to these groups that have worked some of us for the past 30 years and some of us longer than 30 years on these issues, we did our best to come up with, good regulations, and they were ignored. So we are more than upset about it. I know in April of this year, the Prime Minister's talked about getting things going. The reality is that we've had a chance to pause and really look at what's been going on in terms of how we treat the environment. We've learned that the cruise ship industry is one of the biggest pandemic spreaders on planet Earth. Before they were spreading pandemics, there were different outbreaks that they constantly have problems with, because it's kind of like factory farming, where you have too many animals in one place and one gets sick and starts spreading the disease to everybody else because there's no room to move. That's the same thing that's going on with cruise ships, essentially. Too many people, too cramped spaces. I don't know if you've ever been on a cruise ship, but when you walk down them corridors, you feel like, they're going to close in on you any day.
Claustrophobic.
Exactly. And so when you're passing people, you're passing like this, right? So there's very, very little space in a cruise ship. So back to the regulations, like I said, we absolutely had no input whatsoever to say, well, the Monday conversation, like I said, went really well. And we came out of that feeling very hopeful that at least some of our comments were going to get into the final document. So to say that we are shocked, personally, I am disgusted at how we've been treated.
Why do you say that? Why are you disgusted? For many years, you didn't have these regulations. You've been advocating for regulations for a little while. But,
right. Well, then why waste our time? If you're going to pass the same thing you wanted to pass from the get-go, why did you engage us to spend our time, energy, and money, coming up with, making the regulations better?
Well, didn't the government itself suggest some changes in the regulations?
No, they basically submitted what they sent us to comment on. So why bother? If you knew that's what you wanted to do anyway, why bother pulling it up, sharing it and saying comment on it? And, let me tell you how long these regulations have been in play. The first draft that we were sent to was in 2005. So from 2005 to now, we did have a chance to make those regulations better, and they've basically ignored everything we've asked for.
So the Best Commission, for instance, what laws or regulations have they been working under?
Up until the act was passed in December, I think they were kind of floating between the Prime Minister's office and the Ministry of Environment, but nobody can really
But they want to set some laws or regulations that they operated under?
Not that I'm aware of, because we've actually asked, and nobody can actually say this is how the Best Commission was working. So if somebody can show us, we'd be really happy to see, and how it fits in right now. And the reality is that if this was an exercise to say, because a big portion of this process is public participation and transparency. If your intention was just to say, oh yeah, we consulted them, right? I mean, I think we gave in our final comments somewhere around September 18th or 19th. So it's not as though, no, I lied. What is it now? We're in September.
September.
They had the comments early September from us, okay? So you've had time to look at them. They were sent to the minister. They were sent to the lady that engaged us, Miss Neely, Dr. Neely. And like I said, after having a conversation with the director, we kind of walked away from that meeting feeling like this might work.
The point that I'm making, you had the Best Commission for many years. and they would ask, for instance, an investor to provide an environmental impact study.
Right.
What was the legal authority for that?
I honestly couldn't tell you right now. I mean, the thing is that we've known since the Best Commission was enacted, and I want to say that was somewhere in '94, that some developments were required to do an EIA.
Yes.
It's a very hodgepodge kind of concept. I mean, you know, I can get if it's one little thing, but the problem with one little thing is when you do one little thing here and then it's another thing here and another thing here and another thing here, there's cumulative impacts to the environment that are happening. And all of those have to be taken into consideration when you start talking about environmental protection. So some of the key things, at least for me, that I wanted in this legislation was, you know, to have a place where every single developer would put, the government would have to put it on a website. We could see what the development was about. We could put our concerns in about whether it was going to impact fisheries, if it was going to impact freshwater, if there were rare birds in the area. So basically you build the EIA on local knowledge, so that if somebody wanted to come and put a hotel next to you, for example, you would want to know how that's going to impact the beach. Is it going to impact the sand itself? How is it going to impact the marine life? You know, how much of the land are they going to take out? All of those things are important to you because you're a neighbor, and anything your neighbor does impacts you. And we have to take that concept and realize that anything we do to the environment, we are doing to living organisms that are our neighbors, just don't look like us.
But so prior to this legislation then, we did not have proper rules or laws in place to protect the environment.
Well, we have a hodgepodge of laws that protect the environment. So we have some laws that protect fisheries. We have laws that protect mangroves. This piece of legislation is kind of going to... An
umbrella kind of
right.
thing. Okay. So you have submitted you've submitted your ideas.
Right.
They have not been accepted?
No. I could see if you didn't accept half. I mean, you know, when I always say, you know, you ask for a lot more than you think you're going to get, and hope you get 25%. Not the case in this, but and going back to the reason why we're upset about this, and I shouldn't, yeah, we are. How do we go forward as a nation when we are going to be faced with climate change? The sea level is rising. I was just listening to a news piece yesterday on CNN, which basically said that there are 2 huge ice sheets in Antarctica that are melting. And scientists believe that that can raise the level of sea by 4 feet. Okay? We're not talking about ice in the water. We're talking ice on land that's coming into the water. So when you look at those kinds of situations and you realize that the Bahamas is on average, the numbers that I've seen is 85% of the Bahamas is 5 feet or less above sea level. So we have to be concerned. Sea level rise is going to impact our beaches. It's going to impact every development on the coast. It's going to impact our freshwater. It's going to impact rainfall. It's going to impact where fish live and go. It's going to impact everything. So when we get the kind of nonsense that we've just seen happen once again, it's like, you know, you almost expect it. We have been asked in the last several months since COVID to listen to the science, Science is going to get us through this. Dr. Menace, the Prime Minister, is a scientist. He's a doctor. So he obviously has some respect for science. During the COVID thing, He was always asking people, listen to the science. The science is going to get us through, right? So if the science is going to get us through COVID, the science has to get us through climate change. But we don't want to listen to the science on climate change because it places restrictions on developers that they've gotten away with for years. Mm-hmm. We have borne the brunt of the environmental degradation as a result of that, and they get off scot-free.
Well, the people in California and Oregon, they know
exactly
about climate
so they're
change
getting
now.
Fires,
yes.
We're getting Dorians.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And let's face it, there was another article in the paper the other day from the Pacific Disaster Center, and I forget which organization had, I think it was, I can't remember. In any event, what they basically said was that if we had a Category 5, like Dorian, hit Nassau, New Providence, 70% of the island would be inundated with water. Mm-hmm. Okay? That's staggering. Mm-hmm. And especially when, what, 2/3 of the population, if not more, live here? Mm-hmm. Can you imagine the kind of chaos and insanity that would ensue? I mean, you only got to listen to the people out of Abaco, being broken into, all their stuff being stolen. They're still living in houses that have no windows and doors.
Yeah. You've been, for many years, bringing pressure to bear on government and seeking to agitate with the government to get things moving in the right direction. Have you really done your work with in civil society, with average Bahamians, with the population, getting them to understand exactly what is happening and what Re-Earth is all about?
Okay, so Re-Earth really began as an educational organization, yes. And it became very clear to us very early on that there was no activism for the environment. Right. It's one thing to educate people about the environment. It's another thing to speak out when you see things are going wrong and that need to be fixed. So you can go back to longline fishing, the Clifton issue, the dolphin issue, the Disney issue. All of these issues seek to raise the awareness of the communities so that we understand the impacts these developments have on us as a country. When you look at the Disney situation, we've been writing Disney since March of 2019. We have had a few responses. Some of them have been very dismissive, but they have answered. And the reality is we just learned I think this week, the CFO finally admitted or said that Disney is not going ahead with their ships right now, the new ships that were supposed to populate Lighthouse Point. Mm-hmm. So what's going on with that project? In the meantime, where's Disney on the ground in Eleuthera now? I understand that One Eleuthera has been feeding the communities of South Eleuthera at a tune of 5,000 people a week, 5,000 meals a week. Where's the big savior? Where's the Disney savior? That's what we want to know. That's what I want to know. I mean, when you have a company that has negotiated with our government to produce a project that is, what are they saying, between $250 and $400 million, okay? They will be bringing up to 1 million visitors to a pristine area. I mean, you have to think about the amount of people that is with their suntan oil, excuse my French, peeing in the water, all the rest of it. All of that impacts the corals. The pesticides they're going to use to keep the place bug-free, the gray water. There's so much that goes into this, right? When you have a company like Disney that is going to be we're going to make $805 million over 25 years, and based on some rough figures that we've done, Disney will be making $827 million off of each ship every single year.
You think your figures are correct?
They've been checked. And they, you know, the point is, if they're wrong, we've been asking Disney from day one, from 2018, show us your figures.
There are people who are critical of RIOs and the environmentalists about some of the things that you are saying. And they want to have a balance. How do you get real development in your country? How do you provide opportunities for growth and development and employment for people and entrepreneurial opportunities for people if you do not allow foreign investors like Disney to come in?
So I'm not saying that we shouldn't have any foreign investment. I'm just saying we should be really choosy about who we go with, that we should have partners in this life we're living together that is a little bit more equitable than what we're getting, the jammy end of the stick, okay? We're the ones left with the environmental degradation, pollution, our water's impacted, our fisheries are impacted. We're getting the bad end of it, and there's nothing paying to help restore that, okay? So when you ask about how we balance that, when you look at the fact that 90% of all big fish in the world are gone, 45% of coral reefs worldwide are gone, I think the same number for mangroves are gone, the balance has already been tipped in developers' favor for years and years and years. And for us to try and restore that balance, the big corporations need to start forking out some money and doing some real restoration. So when you ask about creating jobs, when we fought for Clifton, we created jobs at Clifton, okay? Because the park is a park now, with a warden, with people who function in it. I don't know how many people work there, but I know that it is functioning as a park. When you look at the work that Waniluthra has done, where they are training people, they're doing a learn and earn, they've put in fire stations, they have a volunteer fire department, they're doing farming, they're doing glass recycling. All these things are paying people, okay? And when in 2018, Waniluthra was going around from one government agency to the next, begging for them to listen to his proposal to make Lighthouse Point a land and sea park, a natural park for everybody to enjoy, and put in a research center and do a national park and leave a huge chunk of the land alone available for research, enjoyment of the general public. That would have employed the same, actually more people than Disney is going to employ.
But the only problem there is part of that land, most of it, is private property, isn't it?
Okay. What I'm saying is, it belongs to Disney now because Disney purchased it, but
yes.
Waniluthra was trying to purchase it at the same time. And because the government jumped on the Disney bandwagon, and this is, come on man, this across the bar thing, I've known this my whole life. You've known it. If it comes from away, it's better. Mm-hmm. I dare Disney to be as good as Waniluthra is, okay? Mm-hmm. I challenge them to come to the table to make Lighthouse Point a beacon for the future, not only for the oceans, for the Bahamas, to set up a new way of thinking and new way of developing. Mm-hmm. They have the resources. Well, maybe now they're in trouble, like most companies are, but you can't be an organization that owns National Geographic, that puts out these amazing stories about the natural world. You own that company, and you don't see that there's a huge discrepancy in owning that company and pushing out all this beautiful work about how to protect the environment. And at the same time, you want to go and put in a half-a-mile pier in a pristine area, not only in a pristine area, in a proposed marine park. Mm-hmm. When you talk about proposed marine parks, so everywhere there is a marine park, essentially what that is a protected area. Some places it's mixed use, so you can do some fishing in it. Some are completely off limits. But what research has shown from like the Exuma Land and Sea Park is those parks continue to populate the rest of the sea because they're protected. They can do what they need to do in a protected area. That's what that park is supposed to be for us. Mm-hmm. And Disney can be a part of that. Yeah. Instead of going down this road with an industry that pollutes the water, pollutes the air, pays their people horrible wages. They live in tiny little caverns at the bottom of the ship. That's how you feel good going on vacation, having all them people under the water in the bowels of the ship, serving you 24/7. Think about them.
Sam, we have a whole lot of little enclaves for visitors, for tourists. Some little islands in the Bahamas that have been allowed to be used by the cruise ships. We want to talk a little bit about that, but let's take a break here. This is our program, Jones and Company. Sam Duncombe, the president of Re-Earth, is our guest. We'll come right back.